You're in a meeting. Someone across the table yawns. Before you've even decided how to react, your own jaw is already answering. You assume it's exhaustion. It isn't. That yawn didn't start in your body. It started in someone else's, crossed the room, and rewired your muscles before your brain caught up. The circuit is older than clocks, older than meetings, and it has almost nothing to do with sleep. You don't need to be tired to catch one. You don't even need to see one. Reading the word yawn enough times can trigger it. Just hearing about it now, your jaw's probably already loosening. Ancient cultures noticed this and got the explanation wrong in fascinating ways. The Greeks believed a yawn meant your soul was slipping out through your open mouth. Medieval Europeans covered their mouths mid-yawn not out of politeness, but to block something unseen from walking in. The reflex was real. The myth was wrong, but the instinct to take an open mouth seriously turned out to be onto something. For most of modern history, science didn't do much better, filing yawns under boredom or low oxygen. Then behavioral neuroscientist Robert Provine started watching people yawn systematically. He showed participants tape of strangers yawning, no words, no context, and about half of them caught it within minutes. Reading a paragraph about yawning was enough. A single photo was enough. The trigger wasn't the mouth or the sound. It was something tracking another person's internal state and quietly copying it into your own body. What neuroscientists call self-other mapping. Part of the mechanism traces back to Giacomo Rizzolatti's discovery of mirror neurons in macaque monkeys, cells that fired identically whether a monkey acted or merely watched another monkey act. Contagious yawning looks like that same blurred line, still running in your skull. Neuroscientist Stephen Platek pushed further, using brain imaging to show that contagious yawning activates regions tied to theory of mind, the machinery for reading what others think and feel. People who scored higher on empathy tests caught more yawns. People who scored lower caught fewer. A yawn wasn't just a reflex anymore. It was a measurable signature of how connected your brain felt to the person across from you. So, what happens when that connection works differently? Atsushi Senju found that children with autism spectrum disorder were significantly less likely to catch a yawn than neurotypical children, not because their mouths worked differently, but because the social mirroring circuitry underneath processes other people's states differently. Researchers studying psychopathy found a similar pattern. The higher someone scored on traits tied to blunted emotional responsiveness, the less likely they were to catch a yawn at all. There's a developmental wrinkle too. Toddlers barely catch yawns. The contagious response doesn't switch on until around age 4 or 5, exactly when a child's brain starts grasping that other people have separate minds. The yawn isn't tracking a mouth movement. It's tracking the growth of empathy itself. Why would evolution build something this strange? Go back far enough and your ancestors lived in exposed, vulnerable groups where survival depended on staying synchronized. A drowsy group is a vulnerable one. Andrew Gallup proposed that yawning works as a brain-cooling mechanism. The deep inhale and jaw stretch increase blood flow and nudge the brain back toward alertness. Gallup even tracked yawning across seasons. It dropped in summer heat when the air no longer helped cool the brain, and rose again in milder weather. Your jaw has its own thermostat. Now scale that mechanism across a group. One person's brain drifts, they yawn, signaling a dip in alertness. Nearby brains catch it, and their own alertness resets, a silent alarm passed hand to hand in the dark. It was never really about boredom. It was about staying awake together, because staying awake together once meant staying alive together. That reframes every yawn you've ever caught in a meeting. It wasn't disrespect. It was an ancient synchronization signal, still firing the way it did around fires that went cold 100,000 years ago. The contagion doesn't even stop at humans. Primatologist Franz de Waal found that chimpanzees catch yawns far more often from members of their own group than from strangers shown on video. Closeness mattered more than the yawn itself. Human studies show the identical bias. You're far more likely to catch a yawn from someone you love than from a stranger because the reflex isn't measuring how tired the room is. It's measuring how close you feel to the people in it. Even dogs catch yawns more readily from their owners than from strangers, the same circuitry stretching just slightly across the species line. So what does it mean if you don't catch a yawn some days? Not that you're broken, just that your attention was elsewhere. Stress, distraction, a screen instead of a face all dampen the mirroring circuit. That's why yawns spread less over video calls. A dozen faces in tiny boxes flattens a signal that was never built for screens. There's a decent chance you've already yawned once just hearing this, not from boredom, but because the word and the image alone are enough to flip the same switch Provine found decades ago. Put two people in the same room, attention locked, and the old circuitry switches back on instantly. The same circuitry that once told your ancestors without a word that someone nearby was slipping towards sleep. You don't choose to mirror someone's exhaustion any more than you choose to mirror their fear or their laughter. The body does this constantly, beneath language, beneath thought, exactly as it always has. Maybe that's the real story here. Long before anyone learned to lie with words, the nervous system was already broadcasting the truth, automatically, impossible to fully suppress. Tired, alert, watching, connected. So next time someone across the table yawns and your own jaw answers before you decide to let it, don't think tired and don't think rude. Think. A signal just crossed from their nervous system into yours, the same way it once crossed around a dying fire. And in that room, right now, neither of you is as separate as you thought.